Alrighty, so today I wanted to talk about Guild Wars because I was finally able to participate in my first season of Guild Wars, and honestly, it was a lot more fun than I had originally anticipated. So let's talk about a couple of different topics. I have an interview with Ren, who is the strategist for Seven Kings, which is the second best guild in the game. He argued that it was the first best, and understandably so. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that it is so exclusive to get into Guild Wars. Guild Wars is a game mode that you hear a lot of people talk about, and you don't really get to see a whole lot of people participate in. And the reason for that is because apparently only the 72 highest guilds get to participate in Guild Wars, which is very unfortunate that it's so limited. Obviously, there are 30 people per guild at the maximum, and so, I mean, that's a good chunk of players, but there's still, way more players than that actually playing the game, so, being able to participate isn't really an option for everyone, which is a bit unfortunate. I am going to try to leave some links and stuff like that. I got permission to put the Seven Kings Discord in the description if you guys want to join that. You can join my Discord if you want to. We have a section where you can sort of like try to, reach out with your guilds. That way you can gain new members, or if you're a person trying to join Guild Wars or something like that, you could maybe post your box or something like that. Try to advertise yourself so that way you can try to get into a guild that is actually participating. We do talk to Ren a little bit later on about how to get in and everything, and he has some interesting thoughts on that as well. So I should have timestamps and everything down at the bottom, so that way you can hopefully skip around, find the information that you need. But obviously I'm just one guy, and it's my first season, so I'm not going to know everything there is to know about it, but this is just my first thoughts and impressions of season 1. So there's 48 elite guilds that actually get to participate, and then 24 regular guilds, because Guild Wars is split up into two sections, which is Elite Guild Wars and Regular. And there's a weird misconception. I originally thought, along with other people, that regular Guild Wars was going to be ungeared, and that is actually not the case. There's only 24 regular guilds, but it basically is just like a kind of like an introduction almost to Guild Wars. Like those bottom 24 guilds get a little bit of a taste of it, but it's not quite the real thing, in the sense that from my understanding there are 3 teams that you use to defend with instead of 5, but then you're still using 4 teams hopefully to attack, and then take the other enemy's towers and everything like that, which hopefully I'm showing cool B-roll and everything of the attacks and stuff like that as well. But the top 48 guilds, those are the ones that are going to be using like regular Guild Wars, which is called Elite. Or I said regular, but that is kind of confusing. So the main Guild Wars that you see is Elite Guild Wars, where it's 5 defending teams per tower, and then you have 4 attacking teams that you go in with. You actually start with 3 attack teams, and you have to go into the guild shop and be able to buy these little sort of like boosters that unlock team slots, and you can even get boosters to improve your defense teams, because the defense teams actually don't even have links on them. The defense teams do have links on them. The attacking teams do not have links on them, which means that you are going to have to, be a little bit more strategic with the, how you approach towers. Each tower has its own buff, which is very interesting. So you have, I think it's 6 different sections on the Guild Wars field. Each section has their own buffer, and then the rest of the towers on the section are getting the buff from the buffer. And then depending on which section you're in, they get different buffs. Like one of them is debuff immunity, one of them is extra stats as long as your teams are mono race teams. So if you're running all unknowns, they get a boost. There's a bunch of different ones. I do have some B-roll of that. So that is a very interesting part where, most of the time, I guess people are just going to fight into the buffer tower first, kill that, so that way the rest of the team doesn't have the buffs, and then they take off the towers individually. The way that it kind of works is that you're trying to get points by taking out different towers. Each tower that an enemy has is worth 100 points, and then if you can take out a whole section, I'm pretty sure you get like a bonus set of rewards or like points, but the enemy teams actually get to sort of prioritize like which sections get what bonuses. So it's kind of like a guessing game, in the sense that you're trying to make sure that your enemy team doesn't know exactly where your points are distributed, so that way you can take out different sections and get different rewards and stuff like that. So, I mean, ideally, you would be able to take out the entire field, and then you would, of course, get the maximum amount of rewards, because then, you know, you've taken out every section. Every section's rewards have already been claimed. But, you know, if you have a lot of trouble, or like you're losing a lot of teams because, you know, the enemy's defenses are just really good, then you'll have to sort of pick and choose which sections you're going to be able to take, and you're going to hope that those have the bonus points. That way you get more than the enemy team does. So a lot of interesting stuff there. I really enjoyed it, actually. If you look at some of the footage that we have, it's 3 different wars for each season of Guild Wars, and it's going to be, so you're going up against 3 different guilds. Each war has a 2-day prep period, so you're going to take those 2 days to set all of your defense teams and everything like that. Each of your guild members will have to do that. You'll have to apply your buffs and stuff like that to your defense teams and make sure that your attack teams are already set. You don't necessarily have to like build the attack teams themselves. You basically just pick the units that you want to pick for the teams, and then once you go in to actually attack, you'll build a team with the units that you've selected, and then you'll be able to change your gear and stuff like that. But when it comes to defenses, you basically need to make sure that your teams are set. They already have the gear and stuff like that you want on them. There is a lot of Guild Wars specific kind of gear stuff going on. So in more recent times, people in sort of demonic beast battles and stuff have started to use more like crit defense gears and crit resistance sets and stuff like that. That is a pretty normal occurrence in Guild Wars. You're going to see a lot of people running like full HP crit defense or HP crit resist sets and stuff like that on their team, so that way you're not able to take them out nearly as easy. Or there might be gimmick teams, and there's all kinds of interesting things. There's a lot of teams using the Suicide Liz, Suicide Fraudrin. They called when I was participating, they were calling those Sui teams, and I mean that's just a shortened version. But those are pretty relevant to certain teams that you'll go up against, like the Jelly King Fairy team that you see kind of a lot in more like chaos PvP and stuff. Those are like incredibly strong because King will basically just do a ton of damage turn 1. In this season that we were participating in, a lot of people were running Philo with that setup, so it was like really, really hard to survive turn 1. So in situations like that, it would be very common to use like a Sui team to sort of just like let them kill, you know, Liz and Fraudrin. You actually use like a gimmick with Ultimate Escanor, because obviously he has his final flames once his complete, you know, or once his health bar is depleted, and then you use Demon King because he has a damage cap. So whenever they take out the smaller 2 units, it gives Demon King his ultimate move gauge, and then you gain all of his HP back, and then you're using really low gear on Escanor, so the AI is sort of manipulated into targeting him, and it's very, very interesting how it sort of plays out, because you draw Demon King's ultimate. As long as it's a high enough ultimate, you black out and then, you know, disable all of the enemy's cards, and then on the second turn, you basically just use Escanor's ultimate and wipe the field, which is extremely gimmicky, of course, but it's interesting to see how the guilds sort of like use different comps like that to sort of take out like very troublesome teams and everything. Which is it's cool. It's cool to see. There's a lot of extra strategy and stuff that goes into stuff like that. The team lineups and everything are very important. You want to use certain teams against other teams. There was situations where we were going up against catastrophes, and because Roxy basically has infinite crit chance when she's running full humans, you have to run like crit defense gears against her because you know she's going to crit, so crit resistance gear would be pretty much useless. So if their defense teams have a catastrophe team in it, you kind of have to play around that. There's a lot of like interesting mechanics that are sort of like maybe nuanced that you wouldn't necessarily think about, but it was very cool to see, and awesome to sort of experience. So so each war, of course, like I was saying, has his 2-day prep period and then 2 days for attacks for each war. So that's going to be 4 days dedicated to each war, which is overall 12 days in total that you're going to be actually fighting and everything like that, which is, or at least participating in the wars, which I think that is going to be a big part of, there's 30 members in your guild. It's hard to coordinate with that many players unless they're really dedicated and like on top of things. And everybody has their own lives and stuff like that. So there was like in the first war we went up against Speedwagon, and I do think that we could have beat Speedwagon, but unfortunately, either due to either laziness or just people being busy and not doing what they needed to do. We didn't have nearly as many people attack as they should have. We had tons of people who did not attack, so we ended up losing that war because they just attacked more than we did, and they took more towers, so they had more points than us. Whereas in the second two wars, I think they were more casual guilds. I don't think that they were necessarily as, on top of things, maybe, and so the teams that we were going up against weren't nearly as good. Their CCs were a lot lower, so it was easy to out-CC with some teams. The Sins team, in general, as an attacking team, has really high CC, so if you can out-CC with that team, kind of like in Heroes Arena, it is my closest reference, because Heroes Arena does actually use Guild Wars teams. You could basically just out-CC the enemy and then take a couple of towers at the worst. But I would say the most boring part of it is that at the end, like after you've sort of killed a couple of the main DPS units and stuff on the teams, it's basically just a ton of stalling. You'll see probably in some of the footage that the human team uses Yuri, and you'll basically just get a character that uses AoE skills and lock them down with Yuri every single turn until your entire team has basically either lifestealed their way back up to full or used regeneration rate or whatever to just like build themselves back up, because obviously you want to be as high of HP as you can for each of the fights, and just like in Guild Wars, or just like in Heroes Arena, you do go to the next team immediately after. It's not like giving you like a full heal or anything like that, so you do have to be a little bit strategic with that. And I mean, it is what it is, but I do find that a little bit boring. You just have to sit there and stall forever and just lifesteal and everything. But there is some strategy involved in that as well. So, I mean, you either like it or hate it, I guess. So, as far as I'm concerned, the attacking and stuff was really fun. I did enjoy it. You get to see like all kinds of fun team comps. Of course, there's a meta. There's a meta for everything in games like this. So there is a Guild Wars meta. There's a lot of the same teams that people are going to be using. All three of the guilds that we went up against were basically using a variation of the same teams, like very similar stuff, if not like a small, tweak here and there, a different character. But for the most part, I think a lot of that stuff is kind of locked in. So, it might get a little bit stale for some of the metas, but there's always new characters coming out. I think that is another thing that Guild Wars does very well, is that there are there's characters that come out in the game that are not really good in most game modes. Like, for example, the Halloween Merlin that we got, who seals AoE units or AoE skills. That unit is actually really, really good for Guild Wars. The Yuri is another fantastic unit for Guild Wars, who doesn't really see the most use outside of like the basic stat buffing that you get in PvP, but in Guild Wars, like just being able to lock down the enemy team from AoEs and stuff like that, it's incredibly helpful. So there are some units that just get catered more towards Guild Wars, of course, which is always an interesting thing, because units will come out. Regular players will just assume that they're incredibly bad characters that are not worth having, and if you don't play Guild Wars, that's probably a good thing that you don't have to spend gems on those characters. But you never know behind the scenes, like if the Guild Wars players are getting like really good use out of the characters, or different stuff like that. So it's interesting to see some of these units actually have like a use case outside of the normal means that regular players sort of see, which is obviously very cool. I like for every character to have some sort of use case at the very least. So another thing that I really liked about it was just that it was fun interacting with a guild. Like, I feel like I've had a guild for over 2-3 years at this point, and although we've tried to push into Guild Wars, it's hard to get all those people to coordinate, and having a guild that is actually like very well put together and being able to communicate with the other players and stuff like that, and you have sort of like this reason to sort of come together as an entire guild and work on your teams and build a strategy on the board and try to go up against other guilds and stuff like that. It is just it's just a part of the game that I think a lot of people would really love to participate in, but don't have a guild that's either in Guild Wars or just don't have enough members and stuff like that. So like I said earlier, feel free to try to, it's gonna be a little bit of like outside game work. Like, you're not necessarily gonna be able to use the in-game chat because nobody really uses that. You're gonna need to look around on Discords, or even like the Reddit might be a decent place to look. I know that Reddit is a little bit more all over the place sometimes. They'll downvote people for different stuff, and you can't necessarily just make like a post about things without it getting either no traction at all, or like whatever the case. They might have like a mega thread for something like that. I don't typically use the Reddit all that much, but I do think that Discord is a really good place. It sucks that the official Grand Cross, like Seven Deadly Sins, doesn't have a Discord for the game, like an official one, because that would be a really good place for like a lot of players to gather. But as far as I know, there's just a bunch of like smaller communities. Like I have one. I know Amazing Grand Cross has one. Typical like YouTubers having, guild or like not guild, but Discords and stuff for their communities kind of goes. And then a lot of the bigger guilds actually do have one. Like I know that Apocalypse has one. I know that Seven Kings has one. So definitely look around in those places. Kind of either advertise yourself or advertise your guild. Maybe other people want to join. That kind of stuff is very, very cool. So as far as rewards goes, I know that some people are probably very interested in, getting extra gems and stuff like that. We were actually in Platinum 2, if I'm not mistaken, so I got just over 40 diamonds for participating in the season, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's not anything like over the top crazy, of course. That's about a multi and a half-ish, not quite, but you do get extra gems for each war that you win, which is kind of nice, I guess. But it wasn't like over the top crazy. You do get a ton of knighthood coins, which I actually thought was kind of nice. Like obviously gems are the thing that people are going to want the most of by far, but being able to get those extra knighthood coins, using those for SA coins or different kinds of stuff like that. They have like anvils and different stuff, and obviously you're going to need a lot more knighthood coins as well, so it kind of like works doubly for the fact that you're going to have to buy those buffs and stuff for your defense teams with the knighthood coins as well. So that was kind of nice. It also gave me like a ton of UR treasure chests for gold. I could take that or leave it. I mean, obviously it helps. Every little bit helps, but it's not very hard to farm gold, so I think that part was maybe fine, I guess. But maybe it would have been cool to get something else a little bit more useful, but, it is what it is. And the last thing, as far as rewards goes, I'm sure a lot of people are interested in the Guild Wars costumes. The Guild Wars costumes are incredibly exclusive in the fact that even though, you might be able to get into Guild Wars, you have to be in the at least Masters 1 rank to be able to even get a Guild Wars costume, and the lowest one that you get is Masters 1. You get the Merlin outfit, and then if you can get to Champion 2, it actually takes the Merlin away and gives you Deanne instead. So it's kind of like this weird like staggered sort of system, but you don't actually get like a ton of them until you get to maybe the Challenger rank, whereas like if you're rank 4 in Challenger, you get Escanor, King, Elizabeth, and Deanne, and then only the very top guild even gets Meliodas. So at the very top rank, you get all 8 of them, which is all 7 of the Deadly Sins, and Elizabeth, because she gets thrown into a lot of things. So those are incredibly exclusive, very specific, ranks needed for those, which is maybe understandable, but yeah, if you see people with those, you know that they're really up there as far as Guild Wars goes. So. Other than that, we're going to go through some of the interview really quickly. I'm going to play some of those questions and everything that I had with Rin. Maybe that'll clear up some sort of information for you guys, and I think that will pretty much be it. So if you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, join Discord, sort of look around, try to communicate with other players, try to make sure that you can sort of get your sort of self out there, or at least get your guild out there so other people can join, because there's a lot of slots needed for Guild Wars, and there's a lot of people that have that are able to participate in Guild Wars and are participating in Guild Wars that aren't really even trying because they're just doing Guild Boss and stuff like that. So there's room. There really is. I know that there's a limited amount of slots and everything, but there are definitely a lot of guilds that either need players, or there's a lot of guilds that aren't actually participating in Guild Wars. So it is what it is. It's one of those things. I hope that maybe they'll expand the roster a little bit more, add some new ranks or something like that, but we'll have to see how that kind of plays out in the future. But if you're interested in Guild Wars at all, I would 100% would tell you to go for it, because it is a lot of fun, and I think I'm going to be participating in another season whenever the next one starts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I thought this was a really, really fun video to make. Obviously it's a little bit different than my normal sort of style of video, so hopefully all the B-roll and stuff like that works out and everything. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys later. Okay, so I'm here with Ren, who is What do you consider yourself, like the strategist for Seven Kings?
Yeah, you could say strategist or Guild Wars coordinator.
Okay.
One of the two.
And him and Durs are basically the big two that I've talked to in as far as like Guild Wars goes, being in Forsaken for the past month, and he's going to answer some questions just related to Guild Wars in case you guys need any info. How do you? Well, I guess you just have to be a top 72 guild to get into Guild Wars, but as far as like seeding goes, do you just have to win all 3 matches?
Yet to seed, you can tie, and then at that point, it will go based off of the guild's box CC, registered box CC for the whole guild,
Yeah.
and points for the total of the 3 matches, the sum. So
Okay. Um.
those two things will factor in equally.
Gotcha. And then for like bracket stuff, like when you first get into Guild Wars, does your guild start at like the very bottom, or how does that sort of work? Like if you don't seed and you come back into Guild Wars, are you basically where you left off at, or what
No, at
happens?
that point, you will have to push in Guild Boss to get to basically wherever you push to will factor in where you go.
Okay,
And
so
then at that point,
go ahead.
you're you also have to factor in the seeded guilds. So let's say you're pushing for Champion 2, we'll say. At that point, there could only be or 2 spots open in Champion 2 because one of the guilds is going to be seeded.
Yeah. Would you just have to make sure that you get your whole guild gets enough points to where they're kind of like in that middle ground, like in the rank that you're shooting for?
Yeah, basically. It's kind of almost you could say it's possible to just factor in it exactly where you want by getting the whole guild's points to a certain range.
Okay.
One thing I can say is between regular and elite, which I don't know this for sure, but I would say that regular is just as competitive as elite. So the way I look at it is they're going to be running the 3 best defenses that you could have. So, you're going to have just as much fun and have to come up with just as much strategy for regular as you would elite. In fact, it could be more, honestly, if,
Yeah,
they're
I
running the
guess with
right
such
stuff.
limited teams, you'd have to be a little bit more like the team like I guess picks would have to be a little bit more serious.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at that point, you can run 3 very nasty defenses with all the best links and graces and, you know, really, really make them hard to go through.
Somebody was asking about the items as far as like I think they're talking about the buffs in Guild Wars. So the buffs only go for the defense teams because you don't
Mm-hmm.
have links as an attacker.
Yep, the buffs are only applied to the defenses. Defenses are very overpowered in Guild Wars, but it makes it fun. Um, Defenses, of course, will have links, whereas the attacking teams do not. And they'll also have buffs. You'll be able to apply 3 different buffs for each defense.
Yeah, and I assume that the reason why that is because obviously the defense teams are having to use AI, and there's ways to manipulate that as I've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's a good thing that you can't control the AI. We'll just put it that way. It'd
Yeah.
be a little too broken.
Somebody wanted to know. He said, "I'm currently in a guild that has a few determined people in it, but can't seem to fill it with people who are actually wanting to strive for it. It's a shame because I always have teams ready to go for it, but I don't want to drop the couple in mine that want to shoot for it." So, what would your advice be for trying to sort of get people together for Guild Wars?
If it is to a point to where it is more than half of the guild, you may want to look into a possible merger with another guild that's roughly in the same situation that you're in. And then take the half from that guild that wants to try, and then merge both of the halves that don't want to try back into one guild, and they can just have their own,
Yeah, and I assume it would be a
own
lot
little
of
guild.
communication, of course, as far as like community stuff goes. So I would recommend probably just joining Discords. Like I have an advertising channel in my Discord where people are like, "Hey, we're looking for members," or this or that. Just trying to,
Definitely.
obviously
Yeah.
try to connect with other people who are interested.
Yeah, if you're just a handful of members down, advertising in the community server, other big servers, that's definitely the good way to do it.
Yeah, and it seems like there are a lack of people actually interested in competing. So as long as you could get in and take it seriously enough, if you have enough like-minded people in your guild, of course, it seems like you could actually have some fun competition at that point, because there definitely is slots to be filled for competitive play.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of misconception that you need to be in the very, 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 very top 1% of the game to play in Guild Wars. Which, don't get me wrong, you do need to have your box built pretty well and stuff, but you don't have to be a great big whale. Just as long as you're willing to try and work in the game, there's a lot of guilds and Guild Wars that would be happy to take you. And I'd love to see more and more people get into it. Which I can tell you, they're right now, at least in the elite rankings, there are a lot of guilds that would be happy to have members that, even if they're brand new with no experience, that are willing to come in and put in the work. Like I said, you don't have to spend, just work and try.
Yeah, and it
So,
seems like, from what I've played so far, you don't necessarily have to have like crazy high box CC. At the very worst, like maybe make some rare gear sets, which is just gold, to really
mhm.
compensate for some different things as far as like crit defense gear and crit resistance gear and stuff like that. Like my biggest weakness, of course, was True Awakening when I was playing, but as far as
Yeah,
everything
true.
else goes, it just kind of falls into place.
Yeah, pretty much, really, just like I said, just having rare gear for the special pieces in the middle, and that'll get you a very long ways. And then True Awakening is pretty important for key units in Guild Wars now. Um, but it's not too big of a thing. You would want a few, but it's not like you need to have your whole box or every unit you use in Guild Wars True Awakened.
Yeah, and even then, that's a
Not in
thing
the
that
right place.
I think is actually kind of nice, because I think as somebody who's played, for the entire duration of the global version, I'm getting kind of close to finishing my box as far as like Super Awakening goes, and I already have everybody level 100. So having another kind of goal to set where I can make gear for these characters for Guild Wars, and just do a little bit more like Guild Wars related stuff is like a nice little extra thing that I can kind of work on, because once I finish my box, and if you're not in Guild Wars, you're just playing PvP at that point. It's the rest of the game is pretty easy.
This is a whole. This adds a whole new aspect to the game. It's something I think a lot of people would enjoy. Just from what I hear, complaints from people saying that the game's too repetitive. There's nothing challenging. Honestly, it sounds like they need Guild Wars.
Yeah, and so many people like PvP that having this sort of like faction, guild versus guild gameplay, it kind of helps supplement some of that. So it's not just like, the meta sucks right now, like I don't really want to play PvP. This is more like you actually getting to connect with other people in your guild, because right now, as far as my guild goes, we want to get into Guild Wars, but we can't seem to get in, and there's not really any real reason to talk to people in the guild if you're not actually coordinating to do something. So it definitely adds more sense of like community there, which I think is really, really cool.
Oh yeah, that is a very great aspect of it, is getting to be close with your guild, interact with everybody, and it definitely brings a whole new liveliness to the actual guild itself. Interacting with the members and stuff along those lines.
Maybe they just need to add new brackets, new ranks. That way there's more More slots to fill at the bottom, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, that would work, but from my experience right now, just outside of the top 10 ranks, there's a lot of guilds that really need members filled.
Yeah, that's true. Because it seems like, I mean, at the 2 out of the 3 guilds that we fought this war, this season in Forsaken, they didn't barely fight back at all on the second war, and then I don't think I even seen the battlefield results for the last war that we did. But from when we played, it was like 6 hours left, and nobody on the enemy team had attacked at all. So
Yeah, there's a lot of what we call guild boss guilds. They just push up and just do the very minor things to set their defenses and teams, and don't try and collect the rewards in the end, which is all right. But I would definitely like to see more people in Guild Wars trying. And there's a lot of guilds out there that want people trying.
you have anything else you want to talk about for Guild Wars
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. Like I said, you don't have to be in the top, very, very top 1% in box and everything else. If you're, I would say, around 12 million, possibly 11 or higher,
And
there's
that's
definitely a spot for you in Guild Wars.
yeah, that's very obtainable. I think, like, as long as you like play the game for at least a little while and just sort of work on your box and everything like that. It's 11 mil. I mean, even free to play players. I mean, you've said that there's several free to play players in Forsaken, and there's several in even Seven Kings, which is you guys are what, the second best guild.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to say first, but yeah, record says second.
The best guild.
uh, uh, but
So I
no.
mean, yeah, you don't have to be spending crazy money on the game or anything like that.
Oh yeah, you can make it without it. Really, just like I said, it comes down to the effort and just wanting to try, and that'll take you more than anything, really. I know majority of guilds would rather have somebody who doesn't spend a dime and tries hard versus somebody who spends a lot of money but is not active.
Yeah.
Anybody who's thinking about getting in, do it. It's a very fun aspect of the game. I mean, I know me personally, without Guild Wars, I don't think I would be half as interested in the game as I am.
Yeah, honestly, it's so cool. I've always wanted to participate in Guild Wars, and like just getting a little bit of a taste with it just in this one war or this one season has been very cool. Just a whole new aspect of the game that people don't get to play, and I mean it's actually really fun. It's so different compared to anything else in the game. I mean, obviously you do have Heroes Arena, but it's way more hands on than that.
Yeah, there's a little bit more prepping and
All of the cool
just
town
having
stuff like allocating resources, spreading out your team members and everything. It's very cool.
oh, it definitely is. And you're a perfect example of this first time you've ever did it. Play Guild Wars, and you come in and absolutely nailed it. Which you'll see in the video. You were putting in some work.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean you really instructed most of the stuff there, but I mean then again, first war, I'm sure as things go on, you get used to it. You know which teams kind of like counter each other. You know kind of what typical defense teams are going to be running as far as like the idea behind their teams go. You kind of get used to that stuff as time goes on.
Another thing that I'd like to see is more people get in and become coordinators. Learn more about making defenses and making strategies and following them out. That's something that really is needed right now.
Last question from Rigatoni says, if Guild Wars is so good, why are there no Guild Wars 2?
Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, like the sequel.
That is a good question. There's a few things in Guild Wars they could definitely improve on. I'm not going to say the rewards are bad by any means. They're not, but they could be updated to add some new stuff. And then, a new, like a revamped system like we were talking about, with maybe being able to control the AI, but remove buffs and
Yeah,
links. That
yeah,
would be cool.
honestly. Alrighty. Well, you got anything else?
I believe that should have it covered other than you guys come join Guild Wars. We'd love to see you in the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little simpler said than done, of course. But I mean, hey, branch out there. I mean, it's unfortunate that the Grand Cross game itself doesn't have an official Discord to kind of talk with the community, I guess. But there's tons of whether it be YouTuber Discords. I know Amazing has one. I have one. There's a lot of different people who have just Grand Cross centered Guild Wars, sort of, or not Guild Wars, Discords in general, but a lot of the guilds have Discords that anybody can really join. And I mean, you might not be able to access the Guild Wars side of the Discord, of course, but I mean, there's at least communities there, lots of people that you can kind of talk around with, branch out, sort of find a group, which is I think the most important part. It's unfortunately it's not so game focused. It's a little bit more community focused, which means you won't be able to just join a Guild Wars guild by just playing the game by itself. Because realistically, nobody's using the in-game chat for anything productive. So,
sadly not.
Yeah, that aspect kind of falls short.
One thing to mention: Reddit, along with Discord, is a great way to find guilds that are looking for members that are involved in Guild Wars.
That's true. I didn't think about Reddit actually.
Yeah, Reddit, the Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross community server. I believe that's the correct name for it.
Yeah, I think so.
There, just any of the big servers, you can look. They'd normally have a channel just for applying for Guild Wars guilds.
Oh, that's actually very helpful.
Yeah.
I'll try to get some of this stuff together and maybe post links and everything for people down in the description that want it. So feel free to look down there if you need to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, Nalt, thank you for having me, and like I said, you done great. We're happy to have you back anytime.
Absolutely. It's honestly, I think that's another really cool aspect is just being able to chat with people who really like the game, because obviously I wouldn't make videos on the game unless I still enjoyed it. So just seeing people sort of strive to play and build up and fight other guilds, which is just a cool mode in of itself. It's very, very cool to be a part of.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, I think that pretty much concludes it.